I want to share something that came up this week in one of my sessions with a client. We were working through struggles she was having when it comes to work. And something that came up was how she would put her supervisors kind of in this role, and even her coworkers, kind of in this parental role, and her in a child role. Even at work, she kind of viewed them as they're almost like the mama bears. And then there was her. And I got curious about that when she said it. And I asked her, I said, I'm curious, why do you label them that? What do you get out of that? And as we worked this thread and we pulled on it more somatically, what was going on in her body and her nervous system as she talked about it, what came up is her protective self, that young part of her that wants to keep her safe. We all have a protective self, that adaptive child version of ourselves. It didn't want to take ownership, because if it was to put her if she was to put herself at the same level as her coworkers, then if she was to mess up, she didn't really have a cop out. She didn't really have an excuse. Whereas right now, the excuse is, well, I'm the kid. I'm the new one on the team. I'm the young one on the team. But it was deeper than just being a novice in a new department. It was deeper because it was a protective mechanism that she's been using all throughout her life to protect a wound. And the deeper wound that we came to was this fear of, I'm not really good enough. I'm always going to mess up. People assume I'm going to mess up. So in order to deal with that wound, so it didn't keep getting pressed on, her protective self said, you know what? We'll just decide that this is the way it is, that other people are kind of the parents. I'm just the kid. I'm the fun one. Of course, I kind of mess up and make it cute. And when she was able to kind of like renegotiate that in her body, and we did a lot of somatic work around this and sit with it, she came to the realization that I don't keep promises to myself. I don't have a lot of integrity in my life. And so we built out a plan and started working on, okay, how can we show integrity? How can we prove to herself? Because it starts with you. If you're ever in a place where you're like, well, people don't trust me, I don't have integrity, it starts by building it with yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, if your word means nothing to you, if you say, I'm going to clean out my closet tonight, and you don't do it, that's a breach of integrity with yourself. So every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're showing yourself that I don't really keep those promises. I don't really have that integrity. And so in her case, and for her specifically, what she was dealing with, kind of her homework was, all right, we're going to start a practice of teaching yourself that you're trustworthy, teaching yourself that you keep your word, and building integrity. And the reason I wanted to share this with you is, one, just because I think a lot of times when we can learn from things that other people are experiencing, and it can be helpful. But two, just getting curious about the places in life where you kind of opt out, because that's your protective self coming up. I see this a lot with clients when it comes to labeling themselves, whether they want to label themselves like neurodivergent, or they want to label themselves as an empath, or as, an avoidant, or having, more anxious attachment. These labels, a lot of the times as a practitioner, is a clue to me that the protective self is running the show right now, because we can hide behind the labels. The labels give us an excuse. The labels allow us to opt out of responsibility. I know in my own life, my protective self would show up in the form of presenting myself as weaker than I am in order to get out of expectations of others, and essentially getting sick. And I realized I was getting sick a lot, and I was having a lot of kind of like health issues that just kept happening. And I truly believe that on some level, I was making myself sick, because that was the storyline essentially that I was telling myself, that, if someone expects something of me and I don't think I can do it, but then all of a sudden, like, oh, I have a sore throat, or man, I've had a migraine all day. It was like it would turn down, in my mind, maybe not in reality, the severity at which they would judge me. Now, again, all of this is happening in my head. Doesn't mean this is what the other person's experiencing. This was my own protective self saying, well, if they think I'm weak, they're not going to be as mad at me if I mess up. So that was kind of the thing that I would hide behind. It was my protective shield if I ever felt that I couldn't live up to someone's expectations. And as I dug into that for myself, the deeper wound there was this wound that said, I'm bad. And if I mess up, everyone will hate me. I cannot make mistakes. I must be perfect. And so whenever I felt like I couldn't be perfect or I might make a mistake, I'd be sick. And the sickness was the shield, because who was going to attack the weak person? And all of this, again, most of the time is happening completely unconscious to us. It's things that we're doing we don't even realize. Again, like labeling ourselves as, oh, well, I'm just the klutz, I'm just the ditzy girl. I'm just the whatever it is. We use these labels, or we use these crutches, these shields, and it's our protective self trying to keep these old wounds safe. But when we go in and we actually deal with the part of us that was wounded, we deal with the part of us that's truly hurting, and we treat it at the root, our resourced self, our wise adult self, is able to get back in the driver's seat, put our protective self in the back seat and say, hey, I got this. You don't need to do that anymore. I know that pattern of behavior. I know that protective mechanism worked for a long time, because at some point it did. At some point it served you well. But if you're an adult now, it's likely hurting your relationships. In my client's case, it could be hurting your career. And so I just want to share that with you. And if something has sparked as I'm talking about this, then I invite you to click the link in the show notes, book a call with me, and let's talk about whether this work would be helpful for you. And a little housekeeping, if you listen to the podcast regularly, I took a little summer sabbatical from podcasting, and I'm back, and we're going to get consistent again. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And as always, I hope you choose growth this week.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're a fan of the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect, you can join me over on Substack or follow me on Instagram @LilyRachels. Let's build love that grows.